movies because that's
Yeah,
a
but
very,
just to
very small list.
Unfortunately, right? Like,
Well, he's like
yeah.
Charles Dance, he's in a bunch of stuff, but the amount of things that are quality of it is just like he's always quality.
Okay.
They're always quality.
I know. I was like, that man's a national treasure, like a British national treasure, but still, like,
Well,
like,
that's
come
just
on.
what it is. They
Golden
are
Child,
good,
The Last
and
Action Hero, like these are golden movies.
listen,
Double platinum.
they are
Like,
great movies, but not for the
Last
right
Action Hero
reasons.
is a banger. That is
Right.
a great movie.
Literally, that gun.
And welcome to the podcast. We're talking about Dresden Files, supposedly.
Yeah, clearly.
I'm ready. Like, I'm not fussed because I've got homework and stuff.
Well,
my only concern
Charles
is if
is my general replacement casting for all
supposedly
Death
Death Masks
he's gone.
Part 1.
So that works for when we do casting again for this.
your replacement casting for whom?
For Christopher Lee, because he's dead. So
Oh.
Charles Dance takes over that role, generally speaking.
I mean, I think he's fantastic. I'm not sure. I'll have to meditate on that. Like, I want to dismiss it out of hand. I don't think he's that caliber, but
well, considering what we have on offer today.
Yeah. Well, I guess where I'm coming from, just to finish the thought, is like, I will go out of my way to watch a movie Christopher Lee is in because Christopher Lee is in it, even if it's bad, i.e. The Wicker Man we were talking about before the show. But I will unexpectedly be happy that Dance is in a film, and just be like, that just brought this up a couple of notches.
I was going to say, I think that's also by dint of the fact that Christopher Lee tends to be either the main starring role or the co-lead or something, whereas Dance tends to be more of a bit role or side
the main villain,
or yes.
Yeah.
So it depends, It's one thing when he's the main villain, but he's Dracula, so the movie's named after him, versus he's in a shitty Godzilla movie.
Oh man, see, that just twigs something else. I got to get my kids to watch horror movies because I've instilled in them the tropes that it's like, look, man, if his name's on the marquee, he's probably going to make it. And so it's like, now we got to do like, the Freddy and the Jason and the Dracula and just be like, what did I say about the tropes, kids?
And so when will you have them watch 7?
Oh, when they're 39, like, no. I don't remember when I watched it, but it was probably too young and I was probably a teenager, but like,
what's like an unexpected or like there are some auto includes, right? That's why I'm asking unexpected, like auto watch movies for you. Like, for me, I would a Guy Ritchie movie. If Guy Ritchie made it, I'll watch it. Which is not like Steven Spielberg or something, or where it's like, I'm gonna go watch that for sure. But I think Guy Ritchie for me is like, I know I will probably like this movie.
Well, from where we started, right? Wes Craven is apparently part of the answer, much to my disappointment, right? But yeah, like, I mean, if you can name any director from the last like 20 years, I'll probably like take a look at it. I should say 40 years, right? Because you've got.
I don't know if.
Sure. Like at this point, I definitely need to go watch some of his earlier stuff, and because I'm not 100% sure, but I think Dune is the only stuff of his that I've seen. Like, I've wanted to watch some other ones. Okay, right. Blade Runner 2049 I did see, but
Arrival's fantastic.
Arrival.
Yeah,
Arrival is like so good.
Yeah, I don't have all of their filmographies memorized, but so like Carpenter, Wes Craven, like a lot of the 80s and 90s, action or horror guys, like I'll watch a lot of their stuff. Even if it's bad, I'll watch it. Probably got a pretty good in if it was written by Stephen King and then adapted. Like, obviously I know where the bad ones lie, but it was really hard to talk myself out of watching it again, because I was like, there didn't seem to be anything good on right now in the horror.
I actually rewatched it last week.
Nice.
Which one though?
The new ones, because the miniseries was not anywhere for streaming, though I would have watched both.
I guess we're talking movies. I'm generally interested in what Robert Eggers does. Like, I want to see Nosferatu later this year.
Yes. That's a good answer.
Even though The Northman was kind of like, The Northman was a little plotting, but I didn't think it was a bad movie. It was just like, meh. And then for TV, I guess it would be Mike Flanagan, because I don't like all the things he does, but generally speaking, he's solid for most of what he does on his horror stuff. Hill House, Bly Manor, all that.
I enjoy his movies.
Other shows, but
I'm going to ask
both.
I'm going to ask this because maybe you guys have a thought or suggestion. Have you guys watched Smile or the second one?
No. It just looked like it was pretty generic, and I wasn't that interested.
I don't know about generic, but I'm just not sure where it's going to fall on my threshold. And they've been really, pushing the marketing lately, and so I'm curious about it, but I'm not sure I'm taking the plunge on that one. So
they've been doing that for the Terrifier movies, and I didn't know anything about them other than apparently they make people really violently sick in the movies sometimes, or
they're like Saw, but more.
Yeah, but worse or something, and it's just that doesn't appeal to me at all.
Exactly. Ironically, I won't watch those. I say ironically because Midsommar and Hereditary now are kind of a sweet spot, but
Yeah, I'm not much for slasher or gore stuff. I never have been. Halloween is about as far as it goes for me. Once you start getting even to the Nightmare on the Nightmare on Elm Street movies are hilarious. There's one good one, and it's not even the first one. The first one.
No, it's the third one. I just rewatched it.
Yeah, the third one's the good one.
Hell yeah, EG. Hell yeah.
But Freddy versus Jason and when it gets to BK or Jason X, of the Friday the 13th movies, that kind of shit's hilarious to me. I love that. I love that kind of thing. If I'm going into a horror movie for one of two things. Either I'm genuinely going to be unsettled, ideally, by the certain kind of horror that I like, or I'm going to laugh my ass off. Most of the time, it's the second one.
Yeah,
but
I got to go see Freddy versus Jason as a preview, and we came out of that because that was man, I don't know what I thought I was going to get, but that's not what I thought I was going to get. And so we gave it a new subtitle. We called it Freddy versus Jason and the Human Sprinklers, because
I was going to say, there's really not a lot of. It's kind of like the Godzilla movie I was just talking about, the amount of monsters in time to human ratio,
right?
Unacceptable.
Right.
Yeah. I vaguely remember the one Jason movie that where I was well, that was different, but I liked it. This was a long time ago.
It was probably the first one.
No, it was the one where he's frozen for a long time and they wake him up in the future and he gets
Jason X.
nanotechnology. Yeah,
it's Jason X. That movie's hilarious.
Really good.
Because it's got a bunch of Andromeda cast-offs in it and whatever. So
yeah, that's funny. All right, let's get a move on because I have actually done my homework, so we're not going to waste this.
Go.
All right, but
talking about spooky season, we weren't wasting it.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that YouTuber thing, right? So I've changed our format a little bit. So if you guys have got any comments or anything like that, you got to hit us up on Twitter or come into our Discord if you're there, and all of that stuff. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to focus a little bit more on the scene setting instead of entirely everything that's happening there, because we can get bogged down in this totally awesome dialogue or the fact that it took him 2 paragraphs to describe his apartment. And stuff like that. So I'm trying to break it up into scenes so that we can kind of storyboard, for lack of a better word, where the episodes would wind up, to give this a little bit more difference. We're of course still going to talk about various things, that have happened and everything like that. But, for starters, focusing on opening, who's there, character wise and things like that. Death Mask opens at the Larry Fowler show, which I had not remembered. So we of course have Larry Fowler, Dresden, Mortimer Lindquist is there, which really to me strikes me as super odd in hindsight. And then we've got,
I guess because he's locally famous for being supernatural.
Well, no, I understand why he's on the Larry Fowler show. I don't understand why he's in this book and why Dresden uses him the way that he uses him. Kind of like it all kind of makes sense. But in this reading, I was like, you know what? This is thinner than I remember. Well,
yeah, it's compared to his other 2 appearances where it's maybe not central, but central enough that, and then this one is just kind of there.
Well, yeah, Ghost Story is very central at least.
It highlights Mortimer as Mortimer outside of his, talent and everything like that, because he's a showman and a sleazeball, right? But still, like this whole gimmick to get Dresden on the show just so that they can talk, and that he was having Mortimer hunt down clues on Susan by using his undead contacts, his spiritual contacts or whatever. I was like, really? There wasn't any other way to handle this? There wasn't, you're a private investigator, and the best you've got was to go to Mortimer to get him to call up some spirits to go down to Peru to see if she's still alive.
Especially since the books from now is going to be a giant undead book, and he's like, yeah, we're going to send you away.
Right. So it just struck me as odd, just commentary. So we've got them under hot lights, and Dresden's wearing a suit. And because it's Dresden, like, he's not going to look sharp in it, right? That we don't necessarily get a bunch of description in it. It's kind of hard to get usually when you have an ill-fitting suit, it's too big, but Dresden's already too big. So I think it's got to be small on him, tall.
It's going to be too big in the torso, and it's way too short in the arms. So it's always constantly coming up. It's tall people problems. Got it.
Yeah.
A very badly done tie.
If only he already had clothes that were, fitting to him.
Well, sure, but now he's got to be professional, Dresden, actually professional. Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's pretty funny because he's got his suppression spell on to try and keep his errant magical energies under control and everything like that, which, of course, goes badly. And
I also find it hilarious that your idea to suppress your magic still involves magic, and that's somehow not going to screw everything up.
Sure, right. Well, he doesn't know about the manacles yet. He'll learn about those later in this book. So, but
yeah, but I mean, he is professionally. I was going to say he is a tinkerer. You'd think he would have come up with something already to do that, like to wear, like his shield bracelet.
Maybe, yeah, right, yeah, some kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a capacitor, right, where it just like absorbs, or something, but. So Mortimer sees that he's kind of freaking out because he's nervous and everything, and Dresden's like, I've been in house fires that I like more than this. So funny dialogue, definitely plenty to highlight and whatnot. And then Mortimer is confidently in his element, right, which is not something that you would usually see and associate with this character, at least up until like Ghost Story. He's always whining about something. He's upset Dresden's nearby and whatnot, but he's very much the showman here.
Right, so. But we're still in the stage of Mortimer's life of which he is not able to do his magic as much as he wants to because he's basically suffering from alcoholism and other forms of depression. So he has been relying on showmanship to cold read people to get money in the seances. He's not doing real mediumship as much as he wants to be. I think he's not like quite there. Like when we see him
he's
in
on
Ghost
the
Story,
rebound, but yes,
he's on the rebound here, right?
Yeah, skill is very much lower, and they make a nod to that in the book and everything. But yeah, for setting the stage for sure. So
we don't actually. So it's book 2 that we see Mortimer the first time?
3.
Okay, so book 3, then we see him book 5, and then we don't see him again until Ghost Story?
Deadbeat.
Yeah.
Which was relatively short.
I was going to say he's hightailing it out of town.
Oh, right.
He provides the initial map, doesn't he? Find all the places where black magic has happened. So yeah. So I mean, we have an unlimited budget, but maybe we don't need to blow it on the casting for Mortimer Lindquist. But he'll
should be that guy from
day.
Constantine.
That
which one? There were a couple of them, and they all died.
Right. Yeah. That one, the one that was an alcoholic in the movie,
and then died. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So way smaller list. Appreciate that.
I was going to say, I feel like we're projecting onto Mort now for the future if he dies.
Oh no. All right. So, so Dresden's nervous. Mortimer's not. Dresden tries to talk to Mortimer, and Mortimer's like, dude, wait till a commercial break, you loony. And then, it basically comes out that Harry is using Mortimer to track Susan, right? So, pretty sure she's in Peru, pretty sure she's still alive, but that's about all I can tell you. And one of Mortimer's little gags, for reading people and whatever, is that they asked him to do something like that for the show, and he's like, I predict there will be 2 more guests because there's 2 empty chairs on the stage, so playing it up for laughs and everything. Like, it's funny because I definitely imagine like a more 50s talk show set piece, for this or whatever, but it's very clearly a Jerry Springer analog. But even still, like, that opens up questions for like period piece and that sort of thing. So, so after their commercial break, they bring out, so they started with their paranormal experts, and then they bring out their counterpoint, the people to debunk them. And it's Father Vincent and Duke Ortega, or
both,
Dr.
Both
Paulo
steeped in their
Ortega.
Supernatural, actually, but they're just
right. That's the thing that's like, I mean, obviously Dresden knows about Ortega, which is what adds extra layer of comedy to the scene for me, even though Dresden's terrified. But yes, like, because we know everything else, having read the book, both of them are literally monsters sitting there telling you that monsters don't exist, and I still very much love Ortega's, line of like, given a few minutes in the right setting, I could convince you that I'm a vampire myself. Yes, handily, you could convince everybody that, so, yeah. So, Harry, like, when Ortega shows up, he sits next to Harry because he also wants to talk to him, because again, like, really, we couldn't have done this any place else any other way. Ortega's very convinced that any other way would have just ended up in violence, which is probably smart because it almost does anyway. Harry starts digging around in his pockets for something to defend himself, and Ortega kind of clamps down on his arm to stop him. And it's like, dude, really? You're going to do this here with all these civilians in front of the cameras, So you want to say you're sitting up in your chair. What do you got?
To be fair, there won't be any cameras left if he starts. So
sure.
That's not really an issue.
There won't be much evidence.
Right.
Yeah. Ortega's using the same reasoning that Mortimer is using of like, we are in an extremely public place, and then if you lose your shit, it's not on me. But
right.
Harry is also the one that's never cared about trying to keep the masquerade, because
literally in the book,
in the phone book.
Yeah.
So, yeah, right. But the civilians is a part of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So they don't get very far because, Ortega's, idea of negotiating a truce is, if you don't agree to my terms, I'll have all of your associates and former clients murdered. And the best terms I'm going to offer you is that if I kill you, I promise that we'll stop the war, which is small comfort. And if you kill me, we promise to leave Chicago alone. Like, not stop the war even, but we'll leave Chicago alone. And so there's a lot of, right. There's a lot of solid dialogue, but yeah, as far as character motivation, there's not a lot to go on there. So Dresden doesn't like being threatened. He doesn't like innocent people being threatened. So of course, the unraveling of his, defenses, his mitigation, happens, and then cameras start exploding, and, the overhead lights start exploding, and then, the building more or less starts to come down because Mortimer takes some debris right in the head. So Vincent and Dresden drag Mortimer out of the building, presumably drop him off with some EMTs, because then, Vincent follows Dresden to the parking garage, and they're having conversations about, well, actually, I also needed to talk to you because it's that kind of day,
Yeah. Vincent getting on a TV show to then talk to Dresden because Fort Hill told him to, even notwithstanding who Vincent actually is, like, that is several layers of contrivance extra.
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of weirdness too, like, in hindsight with Vincent, and like even Harry, twigs to some of it, right? Because like here in a little bit, they'll go to his motel room to get the dossier and the pictures and everything like that, and it's like, Vincent wouldn't be staying in a motel. Like, if he's a Vatican official, worst case scenario, he's being put up somewhere with somebody. But, I absolutely...
same areas if he's such a good friend.
Sure, right? But he absolutely would be in a hotel, like, or whatever, and even it's one of the nicer motels or whatever. But there's a lot of little clues that it's like maybe Vincent's not entirely on the level, if you're paying attention. So,
but even a Denarian wouldn't be staying in a motel, right?
Right. You'd think.
Well, some of them would, like Nicodemus wouldn't. I don't know that Cassius necessarily cares.
Well, and one thing that I'll say is that I think there are a couple of things that give the Denarians a bunch of credit, which may be too much, right? But there are a couple of things that I noticed from the books where I was like, actually, that's pretty clever if they did that on purpose. And the motel might have been one of those things where they're like, what? Dresden's got to be like 15, right? Oh, he's like in his 26s or whatever. Okay, he's a child. He's an idiot. He's not going to know the difference or whatever. And they think about some things, but they miss other things. Because I just read oh shit, what's the word that I'm looking for? The autopsy, right? And Dresden catches the tattoo that they missed because they very clearly, chop off limbs and whatever to avoid the early identification that this is Vincent. And so it's like they're thinking way out in front of him, but they're also kind of sloppy about it, probably underestimating Dresden. And so like the motel thing is like, well, but it's a nice motel and that's what he would expect, right? He's a private investigator. He would expect to go to a place like this. And it's like, yeah, but even Dresden's not that dumb, is kind of the answer in my mind. But
I mean, there's the element of being removed one step from humanity. Like someone like Mab would probably play this better because she's closer to it and keeping up appearances and stuff like that. Whereas Nicodemus is just as happy to have breakfast in a sewer with you, if needed.
Literally, yeah.
So,
and his main connection to humanity is his tongueless servant cult.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because the immediate thing that came to mind is like Mab showing up and doing the mega mind and be like, you're a villain, but not a very good one. What's the difference? Presentation, as she because the Fae and their illusions and stuff. But yeah, so it's just a funny moment.
I mean, Dresden does make that reference later, you know what my sister believes in, flashy entrances.
Yeah. Right. Yep. Yeah. So basically, we have that entire set piece, on the Larry Fowler show, literally on a set. And then, they go to a parking garage, so that, he takes him to his car. I think they're just talking. I think he's just getting ready to leave or whatnot. Or maybe Vincent had asked him to drive him, but they're basically going to his parking garage, and for some reason I don't remember, and I haven't gotten that far yet. Marcone has a hitter in the garage waiting for him, with a small caliber weapon with a silencer and subsonic ammunition, because I'm going to get 20 feet away from you and make sure you're dead, instead of literally anything else he could have done. And then Hendricks is there with some other, unnamed man as well, trying to like block them into the garage. So there's a little bit of a firefight, and then they drive off and whatever. And
then Hendricks is like, was that Dresden?
Right. So, but yeah, very dramatic scene. They tear out of the garage, they turn against the light and almost hit a U-Haul and whatever. But I was just like, I don't remember why this is here, so I'll have to,
So Marcone is going after Vincent because Vincent and the Death Shroud and the Church Mice.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's their angle and their connection, because Marcone's trying to buy it, steal it, whatever.
Yeah, this move, though, is like... It feels more like a way to get him in sooner than maybe necessary. Like if you had just made it so that you first realize Marcone's involvement when it comes to the auction later with Valmont, I feel like that would have been fine.
Does Marcone know that Vincent's been killed and that this is a double?
I don't remember. Yeah.
I don't remember that he does, because he's still going along. Like he seems to think that everything's maybe not fine, but like he's going through with the auction and everything with Valmont later, like it's normal, right? So he doesn't really have any indication that he might have an indication that there's another faction at play, I guess, but I don't know that like, is he just trying to take him out because he comes up with that as a realization.
I don't think he realizes at least fallen angels. More like you say, like a faction also interested in this thing he really
other
wants.
parties that are competition.
Yeah, I mean your options are he knows that Vincent's working against him as something from the creepy side, or he just took a shot at a fucking like Catholic priest. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that seems a bit out of character. For
right.
like he shoots people with provocation. Like he has reasons to shoot at them first.
He is there to get the thing Macone wants back.
Yeah, but
if you just think Vincent, no other faction, just the Catholic priest who's there to get the cloth back for the Catholic Church.
Nah. And I mean, priests would be dying everywhere, right? Because it kind of begs the question, like, why did they not just have Fort Hill do it, you know, in the first place, right? Like maybe Fort Hill's not a high enough level operative because this guy's obviously on the business and admin side as well. So he's got the company credit card and can speak with authority or whatever.
Not with that motel.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. You know, so
he's been embezzling. He's on
right.
He's on probation, so he gets the shitty motel because he was spending too much money on the Ritz the last time he came into town.
Too much hookers and blow, so you know he's got to be in the motel this time.
That's why Marcone knows him. He ran up a debt from the club.
There you go.
And he's just coming to collect.
And just so we're clear, he's still having hookers and blow, just not like the high class stuff. Like that's why they put him in that motel. So
he's slumming it with the vampires now.
Right. So they make their getaway almost to the U-Haul. Now they go to the motel. We've mentioned a bunch of times, obviously. He gets the dossier, pictures of LaRoche or whatever the pronunciation was, but he's been carved up, right? And Interpol's looking for the church mice. We've got really bad, really long distant photos of Anna Valmont and crap, I can't remember the other chick's name. You know, so we've got that much to go on. We get name dropped the church mice, and he's being cheeky about it being the Shroud of Turin, but Dresden actually, you know, knows better in one of his competences. You know, he's like, oh yeah, some relic got stolen from, you know, this cathedral, and Dresden just kind of like glosses over it. But when it comes back around, he's like, wait, you know, that wouldn't happen to be in North Italy, would it? You know, maybe around Turin, you know, so. Yeah, we like, yes, it's the Shroud of Turin because he's describing the dimensions. The other thing that I thought was odd is that he was very specific about the dimensions. Like, you know, it's like, oh, it's 14 feet long and 7 inches and it's 3 by 7, you know, or whatever wide. And I'm like, why would you give those kinds of dimensions? But anyway. So
it's like in National Treasure when they're trying to describe the declaration that they stole to his dad without describing what it is. It's like it's written on animal skin.
Nice.
Or whatever they say.
That scene is so good.
That's funny. Yeah, so we get that. Dresden goes home, and he gets all, or I don't think he goes home. He's got everything in his car probably, but oh yeah, so he changes into all his magical gear, then he goes home. Thus my confusion. It's settings in February, so that's good to know. There's a line basically about the snow is coming down, but it's almost more like sleet, and it pretty much melts immediately, you know, when it touches down and whatever. But it is set in February.
And yet somehow the Carpenter house still has green grass.
Obviously, so it's divine intervention, literally. So you know,
and not AstroTurf.
I was going to say, I feel like Heaven could do a little bit better with their time than making the Carpenters lawn green in February.
Dude, those angels are literally sitting around 99.9% of the time waiting to get jumped anyway. What do you think they're doing on their downtime?
I was going to say, those don't happen yet. That's his retirement package.
Can you imagine being those angels, though? And it's like, oh, there's the Nair, and so it's finally going down. They're outside. Wait, they're only sending humans in? Dude, I've been standing here for I don't know how long, and they're all just turning to each other like, man, do you remember Sodom and Gomorrah when we used to get to do shit to people? That was the times, man.
Stupid God and his reforms.
Oh no, my one weakness, mortals. So yeah,
said no other supernatural faction ever.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So as he goes to his apartment to remind us that the war is on, a vampire gets flung out of the stairwell and up onto the yard, and then bounces a couple of times, bounces up, and then runs off into the night as another person comes up and almost gets blasted with the blasting rod, which is why we had to put that on before we went home. And in the glowing red, he can tell it's Susan. Bom, bom, bom.
Heard you were talking shit.
Yeah, right.
Sending Ghost to look after me. What are you doing?
Right.
Weirdo.
So Mortimer's information.
We broke up.
Yeah, right.
I left the ring.
Yeah. That's there too. You know, props department's going to have a field day because it's like there's postcards and then that cheap little ring right on his mantelpiece, you know, this next chapter. So see, we already did 3 chapters, you know, so yeah, fancy.
Blazing.
But yeah, so that's of course the cliffhanger from chapter 3, and then leading into chapter 4, they're still outside having this conversation. But you know, Harry, you're
good
scaring
place to
me.
end an episode as well.
I was thinking commercial break, but yeah, for sure. So, and then she's like, "Can I come in? We need to talk." He's like, "I don't know. Can you?"
We don't have any stinking commercials in this show. We're high budget. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's true. But they still got those wipes, right, where you would put in a commercial break. So, in some shows they do for sure, but you know,
maybe the CW shows, I guess.
Those are not high budget. Those are exactly the kind of show I'm talking about that he's talking about.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, he doesn't invite her in. He goes into his apartment and casts Flickumbicus. So, you know, we got to have that. Yeah, we get, like I said, a 2-paragraph description of his apartment that I'm not going to go into right now, but we totally could if you want to. He talks about, you know, why he doesn't, like, internal monologue and whatever. But one of the things that I highlighted that I was like, because we want to bring some of that out into dialogue and whatever, was have him say better safe than exsanguinated, because that's where this shows up, where he's talking about like, well, it might not be her and it might be a shapeshifter and it might be something else, but you know, better be safe than exsanguinated. So then she comes in, which means that he's safe, which means now they can totally get it on. So they start making out. But
that's not yet, is it? Oh wait,
no, it's not that scene, but there is this scene, because to also remind us that she's a half vampire, he starts getting pulled under by the kiss, you know, the narcotic drool.
She's like, we broke up, but you know, rebound, or like you hook up after, you know.
Well, they're not even really broken up. She just
this is kind of the conversation where they have to start talking about breaking up.
Right. Yeah. This is the most adult she is, you know. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I mean, right. You have a fair point, man. Now I hate her even more. She's roofing him.
Right.
It's not. Yeah, and so really control.
She could not kiss him.
Like I said, there's something she can't control. No.
His animal Dresden's animal magnet.
I was going to say, if she saw him in that ill-fitting suit earlier, she would not be so quick to jump on him.
I don't know, man. It's pretty clear that she's totally into him out of this scene. So yeah. Supernatural, they're getting it on. So of course the cat twigs to it, and Mister comes and interrupts, giant cock block that he is. But yeah, he like jumps down and interrupts. There's a bunch of right. Yeah, there's a bunch of dialogue back and forth about, you know, I think I need a drink, but maybe you shouldn't. Oh, he's getting a beer. Maybe shouldn't lower my inhibitions, because obviously even without that lowered, this is bad right now. Gets her a Coke out of his actual ice box, you know. So like I said, props department's gonna have a field day. Yeah. So
we're gonna have to get actual ice too from like the store.
Yeah. I had to highlight this because it was just too funny, but it's like, you know, if anything ever happened to you, I you know, it would kill me. He's like, yeah, it'd probably kill me too. So, you know, thanks, Dresden. But
not inaccurate.
Yeah. She's in town because she's quitting her job, and that her boss deserved more than a phone call. You know, lots of breaking up happening here in the next 5 minutes, but yeah, she's found something new to do. And I'm trying to remember the nuance here, but I think she says something about knowing that Ortega is here, and he says, "Yeah, I know already." And she's like, "Well, we're probably going to get involved in that." It's like Ortega's. Oh no, I think she says it. Yeah, Ortega's bad news. He orchestrated the attack on Archangel. And he's like, "How the hell do you know about that?" "I'm an investigative reporter. I investigated." So. But
she's doing his job better than him, which is not surprising.
Right. And I didn't remember that personal stake either, that Ortega was directly involved with Archangel. So, so that starts to make the Asteroid Dresden thing make a little bit more sense. Not that Ebenezer needed an excuse, but man, he was really going to smash that guy at that point. So, this is the son of a bitch that killed my best friend. Boom.
So, yeah, because he's totally the...
Right. Yeah, totally. DED, dead.
Totally.
So, yeah. And then while they're having this conversation, there's another knock at the door. This book is rife with like interruptions, like sitcom level of interruptions, because it's like, oh, here's a scene of Dresden being by himself. Knock on the door. Phone call. Monster attacks you in the dark alleyway. Just all of that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So Martin comes in. Kind of short, especially for Dresden, and bland and everything. And I'm like, who do we even cast for this guy? Like, I don't think we've ever done that for our casting, because it's
hold on, I'll find the dude's name. There's a certain guy that I have in mind.
Because I feel bad for this guy. It's like,
I was gonna say,
like
he's
when you got to
10
do
years older by now.
He probably is, but he still would work.
Yeah.
Stark Sands.
What now?
Stark Sands is the actor's name.
Sands? Oh, yeah.
Sands.
He's too good looking.
I mean, he's very normal looking, though. And he's a good actor. And so he could be very normal looking. There's nothing about him.
I think we go the opposite route and just cast the most beautiful person we can find.
Right. Obviously.
And have Dresden describing him as bland, because he's like clearly doing it from a jealous angle instead of...
I mean, yeah. That would be hilarious, in a different story and whatever.
It's like, Brad Pitt from circa 1994, and he was the most bland-looking person I ever saw. Meanwhile, he's just standing there on the stairs, smoldering.
Yeah, I don't think we could do Stark Sands, but he does have a twin brother, so maybe we'll cast him.
Sand Stark.
So, yeah. It was just like the first trivia. I'm like, well, that is interesting, actually, but...
Well, no, I mean, you have the body double already figured out. You can have him into different places, and this works.
Oh,
do we need a body double?
I don't know. Maybe if we have a twin brother available, why wouldn't we take advantage of it?
Oh shit!
Okay, because that's two paychecks.
I have an idea on this.
Fun fact, Justin.
Yeah.
Did you know that Xander and Buffy has a twin brother? And that's how they filmed the twin, like when he was split up in two. It's literally him.
I
and
don't
his brother.
recall that. Yeah, I might have known that once upon a time, but I don't recall that.
Do you know how they did it in The Parent Trap? They just had Lindsay Lohan play both roles.
That sounds more aggravating, like just more work effort. Let's just have two people.
She was a kid, so you can overwork her. It was fine.
Sorry, I'm off in my own little world, because I just decided to Google, what was in my head, because that's how that you start that sometimes. And so I Googled for like bland actors, and I found an article on IMDb about the most bland actors. That's apparently just a hit piece about actors and actresses this guy doesn't like, because like The Rock is like number 6. And I'm like really? Like, I think Megan Fox is on the list, and I'm just like,
well, is he talking about their acting ability?
Talking about their acting ability.
I don't know. Yeah. It's just like, but that's why I just started laughing, because I was like, okay,
they're not bland looking, but they are all like we've talked about. The Rock always plays The Rock. Megan Fox plays Megan Fox.
Yeah.
Gal Gadot plays someone who can't act.
So counterpoint, because while I was looking at this list, it popped into my head, but Dane DeHaan or however you say it, but he was the main from Valerian. I was like, that's your guy. Like, nothing on that guy. He was supposed to be like, I don't know. He was supposed to be more or whatever, but
I was actually going to say once that him and what's her face that played with him, could be the Ebs, because they can pull off weird, crazy people, because I think they are kind of weird, crazy people.
Sure. I have never seen an on-screen couple have less chemistry than those two in that movie. Like, right. It's unreal.
It's possible, but I would have had to have seen
maybe Kyle and Kelly.
Ooh, yeah.
That would be fine too. Yeah. Actually, just every weird vampire couple, they're them.
How about Post Malone
every time? Yeah.
He's none.
Well, except they switch, right? So they're Kyle and Kelly in the traditional roles, but then when they become the Ebs, like he's Esmeralda and she's Esteban.
Okay. We're getting a little weird now, but okay.
Now?
Yep. Okay. So Martin comes in, cheeses off Dresden even more as if he needed that, because now he's frustrated and suspicious and jealous and Dresden. And after they leave, because basically Martin comes in to crack the whip, which is another thing, it's like, hey, we got to get up early. We've got that thing. And Harry's like, you can have 5 minutes. And Susan's like, no, I got to go. Like, I don't know, how tight their schedule is or what other kind of leverage he's applying there, but she just drops it and does not have further conversation and leaves. So Dresden does the only rational thing and goes and takes an ice cold shower. So literally, because right as the icicles are about to form on his eyelids, I think is when he gets out and he starts to get warm. That's what happens. So he gets out, starts to get warm, and once he's getting feeling back in his limbs, then that's when the phone rings, because that's this book. Every interruption, right? And it's Murphy, and you got to meet me at the morgue and look at a body, So
I think the biggest interruption of all time in Dresden is when Molly rings. I think that's when he's been the most cheesed off about being interrupted.
The one for Little Chicago?
Yeah. Where he's like preparing. And
the one that would have blown him up if she didn't do
it. And then I forgot to unplug the damn phone. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, anytime he's decided that he wants to cleanse himself and like fucking wear a white robe and do incense and a bell and shit, it's like, no, you're not being authentic. You're not prepared for this. I don't care what you're doing. You're being ridiculous.
Doesn't he answer the phone something like what? And she's like, excuse me, is this Harry Dresden speaking? I'm pissed off, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so morgue. Basically just a scene changed here. We've got them at the morgue. It's Dresden and Murphy. They're taking a long way around because apparently it's also like it's in a hospital. So we can't just go through the main hospital floor because, life support.
Because then he'll flick them because everybody off.
Right. Yep. And then, so for cast, we've got Dresden, Murphy, a corpse, and Butters. So for this
Butters' introduction, even though he was,
yeah,
this is the first time we get to see him. There's kind of small things mentioned, but not named.
And I was thinking, like, I wouldn't hate having him like in the background or something in, like when we film for Great Peril or whatnot. I think it'd be too much to like just insert him into it. I'm fine him being introduced here, but I think that could be fun, is to have him like, I don't know. I guess he wouldn't be on scene, right? So it wouldn't make a lot of sense to have him there.
We just have him represented as a stick of butter in the ambulance.
Right. No, 2 pairs. Two sticks
Someone's
of butter.
just eating butter and they're
Butters.
Yeah, okay, well, you guys, somewhere there's a shark that you need to jump. Like, come on.
I keep trying, and you keep wanting to bring us back to sanity. What's wrong with you all of a sudden?
I'm in charge today. Look at me. I'm the director now. Like, so. One takeaway that, gets lampshaded here is that, Murphy didn't look like a monster hunting Valkyrie. Thanks for that. So.
It's because she's not a Valkyrie. Idiots.
Yeah. Yet. So.
Ever.
We still don't know how Valkyries are made. Like, I mean, you can't have a mommy and a daddy Valkyrie get together and make baby Valkyries. So it's got to happen some other way.
But they do have a daddy.
Don't say it like that.
Right.
She says it like that.
I know. That's exactly what Sigrid said. You're exactly.
But he does like it when we call him daddy.
Yeah, no doubt. So, bunch of hot blonde warrior women just standing around calling you daddy. Who doesn't like that? Anyway,
Dresden.
Yeah, right. So they talk about Susan because that this chapter is like half internal dialogue. You know, I can't remember all the random nonsense he's thinking about and whatnot, but he is thinking about the case a little bit. He's thinking about some other stuff, and then Murphy's like, "Well, you look pensive," and then he falls. He's like, "Yeah, blah blah blah," and then he falls back into it, and she's like, "You look guilty," and a couple other things that she says, like, "You look like love problems," and he's like, "Susan's in town." Oh shit. Okay. So so they talk about that, and like right at the end as they're getting to the door, I think is when she drops on him. It's like, "Harry, you don't prep a guy for a happy conversation," and so he just kind of gets all depressed and starts watching his feet as they walk up to the door and everything. They meet Butters for the first time, as we established. Dresden's a smartass because of course he is, but he's never met him before. So, Butters is intelligent. So it's like, "Oh, you must be Harry Dresden. Oh, that's what it says on my underwear." So other little funny moments and dialogue and everything. Here, because I know better, my notes refer to this as the corpse of Father Vincent, because I'm pretty sure that's who it was and whatever. And pretty grotesque. And again, the props department, right? Because it's like you've got a corpse that's torso has been mutilated for torturing purposes, and he's got a bunch of plagues that some even Butters couldn't identify, and not all of the tests have come back yet. And then both arms are chopped off at different places, like one mid wrist and one just below the elbow, and he's decapitated. So Dresden's trying not to like throw up this entire time. Then you get commentary like the timing is like inexplicable, borderline impossible. It's like every disease this guy has ever had got together and decided when to whack him. And so that's why Butters called, is like, like any one of these things, fine, you betcha. But all of them together, it's too unlikely. It's got to be something. So, and like they make the commentary even that he's probably got more bacteria in him than blood vessels. You
always have more bacteria in you than blood vessels, blood cells.
Yeah, but yeah, like invasive, deadly bacteria in this case. But,
not ones that you can see.
Right. Yeah, that one tried to eat me. So. Yeah, more fun with props. He uses a Polaroid camera to take a picture of the tattoo. So like he's like moving the arm to examine it or something, and Harry twigs to the tattoo. It's Thoth, right? We haven't identified it yet in the book, but it's the Egyptian god, right? That Fort Hill has the same tattoo and everything like that. So he takes 2 snaps with a Polaroid picture, gives one to Karen, gives one to Harry.
Polaroid.
Yeah. She does that. We get Butters leaves the room so that Murphy can talk to him. And she's all dressed fancy for this scene too, which is another, it's kind of funny because it's like we had Dresden in a suit already. Now we've got Murphy in a suit because there's some brass visiting Chicago and shaking things up and looking around and stuff like that. And Butters leaves so that they can talk about their side of the case and whatever. And she makes the comment that Butters is too smart for his job, and Harry's like, "What do you mean?" It's like he was the medical examiner for the Velvet Room, and stuff like that. And he realized that they were humanoid but not humans, and spent 3 months in the insane asylum and all of that stuff. So probably important to include some of this,
oh yeah,
episodes and stuff. So
wildly unrealistic for Chicago too. There's clearly a lot of bodies out there that are humanoid but not human. And
I mean, what about the Chuds? And there's a bunch of stuff out there. So
Chicago, New York, Boston, LA, all these cities know the difference between a human and a humanoid body.
Right. Yeah, definitely the gills and the webbed fingers is usually a tell, and a few other things. So but ending the scene, it's, you know, kind of fun and shows the development of their relationship, because, you know, Murphy's like, well, you know something else, something's going on. And he's like, yeah, sorry, I can't tell you because, you know, a client. And she's like, okay, I trust nobody's, you know, in danger or hurt or whatever. And he's like, not that I'm aware of, type of stuff. And then she goes to leave and just was going to leave it at that. And then he's like, look, if I was going to tell you anything, I'd tell you to go like look into this. And she's like, right, if you did say anything, you tight-lipped bastard. So yeah.
She's trusting him, and he's also giving her information.
Right.
Very big development.
Yay, growth. So from there, he's trying to make his way out of the building, and gets diverted by, you know, they're moving a patient with life support and everything. So he ducks out through a cafeteria and winds up in an alleyway. And I was like, oh, I know where this is. So yeah. So as he's leaving, he gets a cold shiver run up his spine. So he's got his head on a swivel and everything like that. You know, he walks past, you know, Shiro, then he walks past Sonya, or vice versa, whichever way it is. You know, and then that's when, you know, he basically hears, you know, like the footsteps come up behind him, I think, and he turns around and it's basically Ursiel, like already in bear form, more or less. You know, because he's thinking to himself, it's like, yeah, maybe it's some other private consultant who's, shit, I should look, and oh shit, it's a giant bear. So yeah, so he spins around with his blasting rod ready to go, and then realizes it's a bear and runs. So you know, in the start of the next chapter, as he's running, he's breaking down like why he ran, and wizards are amazing and we could do so many destructive things, but you know, that guy planned an ambush, and the smart thing to do is to get out of there, you know. You know, so here is basically, you know, the big fight scene in the alleyway. So Ursiel chases him and leaps at him. Dresden slides and rolls, and then he decides to double back and run the other way, because Ursiel basically like jumps to tackle him but clears him and winds up at the head of the alley. So Dresden's boxed in now, so he turns around to run back the other way, leaps over some boxes and nearly lands on Sonya, and decides to drag him along because he thinks he's just a homeless guy chilling in the thing. So he's like, go, what are you doing, you know? So then they catch up to Shiro, and he's like, you know, throws Sonya at him and says, both of you get out of here, not realizing they're there to save him. So he immediately turns around, very defensive, super cinematic in my head, kind of hard to describe, but it's like he whirls around with his blasting rod and just starts blasting away at Ursiel, and surprisingly makes, you know, some effort, like is able, like halts Ursiel's charge. Ursiel slams into some garbage cans and stuff like that, which is not what Dresden was expecting, because he was like, part of why I'm running is because if he can, you know, absorb my blasts or deflect them or something, I got no plan B. So I might as well start with the running. And it surprisingly works the first time, but when Ursiel gets up, he looks at Dresden and then they do a soul gaze. So, you know, so that'll be cinematically fun, because it's like we can just like suck you in with the camera and, you know, pull you inside. And I'm like, it's kind of tough because you learn a lot about the fact that this is, you know, a Denarian and whatever, and slight foreshadowing. You know, I think Harry was telling Murphy about the difference between a fallen and a demon earlier. So you get a very quick little foreshadowing of like, well, you know, the fallen are a thing, and then you see one, right? And so you go inside and you've got, I put it down as Rasmussen, but they didn't say yet. So you get that guy. He's like crucified, for lack of a better word, you know, against a cliff face that is actually Ursiel, I'm sure. And you've got his sigil up ahead, and, you know, his eyes open up, and then he just says, get out, and, you know, evicts Harry. So between that and, you know, getting blasted, he literally falls over backwards, crushes a bunch of, you know, bottles in the alleyway and everything like that, and is highly dazed. And good thing the knights were there, because, you know, they needed to save him at that point. So But he more or less falls at Shiro's feet and probably like looks up backwards, and Shiro just hands him his glasses and says, "Hold, please. You know, I got to go kick somebody's ass now." So,
very listens to and wipe.
Sure. I mean, yeah, there's definitely some of it, because here in a second, but you know, he kind of squares off with them. They're thrusting and parrying at each other and everything, and Dresden starts to realize a couple of things about the nature of the sword he's wielding, like it's thrumming with power, and you know, it's giving off white light, and basically he's only ever seen one other sword do that. Everybody knows, you know, so we can leave that up to the audience to put together that it's like, oh, we've seen Michael fight with Amarakius, so you know, this is probably in the same league and everything like that. Ursiel has a very deep and melodious voice, you know, because he's an angel, really. At the end of the day, he's a fallen angel, but you know, he's taunting Shiro, and you know, that's what Shiro's like, did you come here to talk? No, indeed I did not. So they go back to fighting. Sonya throws his jacket over his face and draws his sword, and Ursiel charges. He stops the charge with his rapier, saber, whatever. And they're fighting and whatnot, but you know, Dresden's still like being useless at Sonya's feet as Sonya is fighting to defend him and everything like that. You know, clobbers Sonya with a paw and dislocates his shoulder and drives him into the side of the alley, whirls on Shiro, who is still like dancing away from his attacks mostly and everything, but kind of backs him up into a corner and disarms Shiro as well. And, you know, there's some more dialogue about this being the end, and Shiro's very confident it is the end, but not for him. And then Michael jumps off from the top rope and decapitates Ursiel, you know, so...
Falling attack.
Do what?
Falling attack. Very, very cinematic.
Right.
Very video game.
Right. Yeah, because it's got to be, because it's like, how did you absorb the impact of, like, even if it was only the second story, right? You know, like superhero landing or something, you know? Like, I don't think the angels are, you know, affecting gravity for you, you know? So maybe, but yeah.
You clearly have never seen angels in the outfield.
I mean, I have a few times actually. So
then you should know the answer to this.
Yeah, I mean, because they'll bend the pole and you know other things too. But
so I mean, listen, if there was any more sorry no account team than the California Angels at that time, it would have been the Chicago Cubs.
Right. So. And at least the Angels got their win streak about 100 years before, you know, the Cubs. So.
Not quite, but yes.
Yeah. So more props or maybe special effects and everything like that. But like Ursiel reverts to the human form, and then the human form liquefies, you know, and basically, so there's a couple of transitions involved there. So when he reverts out of bear form, the human is also decapitated, you know, and then in a few minutes, the human then liquefies. And then that's when the coin kind of pops out and rolls over to Dresden's feet. And Dresden in his head is like, oh, I better grab that before it gets all covered and gross. So he bends down to pick it up, and Shiro just smashes his hand, you know, with his sheathed sword and just says no. And Michael picks it up.
Really that hard up for cash, Dresden? God damn.
Right. You just pick random quarters up. Like, you know, villains carry loose change, I guess. You know, you just don't grab it.
I mean, I'll pick a quarter up, but yeah, you know.
Right. I mean, this has got to be larger than a quarter, more like $50 size. So it's like,
well, then I would definitely pick that up because then I would know.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm old enough to have been gifted a few of those when I was younger.
Right, for sure. Yeah, 50-cent pieces and stuff, and
yeah, silver dollars.
Yeah, silver dollars.
Sacagawea shit came along.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, Michael ends up picking it up with, you know, his magic napkin. Presumably, I was thinking about that. It's like they don't talk about it so much, but it's like, does the napkin work because they made it work, or does the napkin work because he believes that it should work, or is it just a napkin with some crosses emblazoned on it and as long as they don't have physical contact, it's enough, or whatever. But
probably the physical contact is a strict rule. And so if they are wearing gloves and not touching it and like they have the napkin, it's like it's probably enough. An envelope would probably have also been fine.
Sure. Little harder to pick things up with an envelope though. So, that would make sense. But yeah, storing it that way, probably fine.
But like in Fellowship in the Ring, and Gandalf like has the tongs and he sticks pulls it out of the fire after he threw the envelope in the fire. Like, somewhere between tongs and envelope, like napkin.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I'm thinking too, I was like, man, if I was the church, if I wanted these to be on storage, like at a minimum, I would put them in some kind of epoxy or something, right? Like if you've seen them preserve shit with, I was like, dude, how hard would that be to dig out? You put that in epoxy, you put that shit in concrete, and you lock that in a vault, and that shit's not getting circulated for about 100 years or whatever. So, but
it'll find a way.
Yeah, as gets discussed, possibly the point of them is to be in circulation, but so yeah. That was it. That's 6 chapters.
We did it.
So
we ended on an actual chapter, despite Andreas trying to drive us off the rails as previously. We managed.
I know, with like a 10-15 minute digression. So next time I'll probably try and do like 10 just in case. But that's 20% of the book. So
I was going to say that's 2 weeks from now. You have no idea what kind of topics are going to be in your head to digress,
dude.
You can't predict these things.
It's probably going to be more about shitty writers and writing though. So. That's been a theme lately.
It'll be closer to Halloween, or actually, it'll be just past Halloween in 2 weeks. So
if Alex is still annoyed by it, at least
I'm annoyed.
Might be.
I'm going to be annoyed.
I was going to say the only one who retains annoyed longer is me.
And I think you are also annoyed about the same subject, more or less. So therefore, this is.
No, sometimes I'm sleeping. And actually,
you're not annoyed when you sleep. Really? I think.
He wakes up and he's like, "Oh,
yeah."
Oh, to be fair, that's everyone. The people who wake up and are like, they're psychopaths.
I was like, you were in the middle of the night. You're so annoyed, you wake up from it and like,
listen, if I wake up in the middle of the night, I have reason to be annoyed because it's one of two things: either I just woke up for the hell of it and therefore bad, or I have to pee and therefore
that's really annoying because then you have to get up.
Right. Yeah. He wakes up. He's like, and I was having such a nice day too. So.
So next week we are supposed to continue on with Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Allegedly.
Which at least is good writing, so maybe that'll be a palate cleanser. So.
Tune in for that. Justin looks skeptical, but I don't understand why. It's one of the best animes of all time.
Allegedly.
If you tune in next week, we'll be doing Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. And if you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/brokenjars. You can go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, and leave a comment. If you support us on Patreon, you get to join our Discord. And we are live every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern.